Welcome to the Victoria Real Estate Show. My name is Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Most, and it is April 17th, and I'm here with...
Oh my God, Jane, you always bring the energy. I can't handle it. It's Andrew Plank here with the Vibe Real Estate Group and Royal LePage. Hi, everybody.
Get your vibe going there, buddy.
I've got a good vibe. It's more chill. It's just a little chill.
Jen Lowe, mortgage broker with DLC Modern Mortgage Group. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
You too.
The dynamic trio. How did it go this past week for you guys? So Andrew?
Yeah, I've had a busy week. I've got a couple of new listings going live. I've got a few listings on the go, offers flying around, buyers buying investment condos, and all kinds of good stuff, and training up some new staff, so as I was saying earlier. So yeah, it's been busy. And I've got an earworm in my head now because Jane and Jen were singing before the show. But I will get my revenge.
I'm sure.
Okay, well, let's go to the show. And here we go. All right, so it is April 17th. And we're going to be talking about buying a condo, what you need to know. So first of all, Jen's going to give us a mortgage update. We're going to talk stats, and then we'll talk about the strata doc. So go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, well, Jen was going to give us an update. Then we were talking stats. Should we do that?
No, this is fine.
Okay, so we're doing stats, then Jen update. Okay, great. So what we've got here is the last week's activity. And in the last week, we had 377 new listings went live, and that's compared to 415 the week before. So a little less, but I think that's also just because we're moving in towards a long weekend, and agents tend to not want to work long weekends unless you're crazy like me and put two new listings up this week. So anyway, point is, I think that week next, we're going to see a big bump in new listings. Pending properties, almost a wash versus this week versus last week, 149 versus 148 properties went pending. A little less in terms of price decreases this week. 144 properties decreased in price versus 159 the week before. And 40 properties expired this week as opposed to 31. Any comments? That's a So what's the about?
Well, I was looking month over month and just seeing how we're lower than I expected to be.
Okay. All right.
I'm just an observation.
Okay. That's what we're here for, observations. So do you have any observations, Jen?
I mean, the level of uncertainty with the tariffs and stuff, I agree. We're lower than what I would have thought where we'd be in the spring market.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would have been a very, very, very hot spring market if it wasn't for the uncertainty down south. That's given the low interest rates been coming down and down and down, and it would have gone down lower, I think, at the last announcement, which you'll be talking about next. So I'll shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, we're at 264 net unconditional sales. I have construction going on behind me. Not sure if you can hear it. This is compared to 679 for April of 2024. So as I said, like we're a bit low. Net unconditional sales, new listings 740. That's compared to 1620 for the full month of April 2024, and total listings were up 3,228 compared to 3,017 last year. So we're moving more into what I consider a buyer market.
Yeah. And so, here we are, April 17th, and Monday would have been the 14th. So kind of halfway through the month, approximately. And we're definitely less than half if we were to double up for our unconditional sales. So unless we get some acceleration this month, we're going to be lower than last year for sales.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, define the buyer's market. So basically buyers have more choice, and they've got more ability to add that subject to sale.
And they can have longer conditions, they can have more conditions, they can take their time to think about it. Where
Yes.
maybe before they were looking at 10 properties and they during COVID, got into one. Now they're probably getting into 9.
Right.
Yeah. A buyer's market really is one where the buyers have more confidence than the sellers. And the stats will support that based on, there's more listings, so the sellers have more competition against each other. Properties are sitting on market longer, so buyers have more time to take that thing, do some thinking and do their due diligence. So it's that balancing act. And there's no, like, I know we talk about, a buyer's market is 30%, list to sell ratio or whatever, like
20%, yeah.
20, 30. Like I've seen different stats for that, but it's really more about the sentiment overall.
The psychology. So during COVID, sellers were fat and sassy. Oh yeah, if you don't bring your offer, that's it. It's going to sell to somebody else. And now a buyer's like, well, I think I'm going to negotiate this in. I do want that trampoline in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And the seller would
Yeah.
be like, give them the trampoline. That's
Mhm.
more a buyer's market.
Yeah.
It's just a perception. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's where we're at. Okay, so and the list to sale ratio. So this month so far is 39.52%. Now, somebody asked me why this doesn't actually reflect the actual list to sale ratio. That's because we're looking at the total. We're looking at new listings versus sales. And the list to sale ratio reported by the Victoria Real Estate Board is the total listings selling. So
Okay.
total listings, okay? All right, I see Andrew's doing something in the background there, you rascal. Okay, Jen, tell us what's going on.
Okay, so yesterday the Bank of Canada had their rate announcement, and they decided to not make any changes to the overnight lending rate. So they kept it at 2.75%. However, the current outlook with all the uncertainty and what's happening with the employment numbers and inflation is that rates are projected to come down significantly by the end of the year. And that recession word is being thrown out as
A lot more.
Yeah. So rates are expected to drop.
What do you think about the Chinese response to the U.S.? So they're negotiating new trade agreements with other countries now. They're exporting stuff. They're planning to export more to Australia. So they've been very nimble, I think. I heard Carney went to Europe to negotiate new trade agreements there.
Yeah. I think, and according to our Dominion Lending's chief economist, Trump is wanting to have all the manufacturing and everything based in the U.S., but the reality of that is just not. How does that happen? How quickly can that happen? And
Not only do you need to build factories, you need to train skilled workers, and those people need to be wanting to do that specific work.
Right.
During World War II, people tooled up really quickly because there was that high motivation and people were, patriotic and so forth. Without that, people, I think if they're being fed and are comfortable and so forth, not a lot of people are going to be wanting to go to that degree of extra training required, or just work in a factory as a tool.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're recently, and it's a bit over my head, but the bond yields were going up, which was not, yes, it wasn't expected. So that kind of pushed fixed interest rates up a little bit. But I think they're going to come back down.
Okay.
Interesting.
Right. I mean, overall, we just we just know there's moving parts down south of us that are affecting us. As they
lot.
say, U.S. Sneezes and we catch a cold.
That's a great, yes.
So all the more true right now. So again, though, that being said, and actually there was a recent, I'm hearing that there's a bit of a push now in the luxury market, and that actually, I don't know if that's if there's a correlation here or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is expats from the States who can afford to come back and are choosing to move back to Canada and moving back to one of the most beautiful and best climates, most excellent places to live. So those are the folks with money who can afford to make that change and are just going to come back here and get their foothold back in Victoria. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was actually a surge of buyers from the States coming, and very specifically to Victoria, in the next year or so, if things continue on the trend they are down south.
So I am working with a lot of people who are marginalized in the U.S. For lifestyle choices right now. So they're coming to Canada. They have a lot of money too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the people with money, because people with money, for better and worse, means choice. And it's people with money who are coming here. And that's why we're maybe seeing a bit of a bump in that luxury market. That's my without actually looking at the details, that's my just intuition.
Your general.
Let's talk. It's my general, intuition on that. Let's talk.
Just quickly going back to the, in the interest rates that people are choosing, and what we're seeing, the current trends, like right now, a 3, 4, and a 5-year fixed rate they're exactly the same.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are more looking at a shorter term fixed rate, gambling that interest rates are going to drop. Or, I mean, right now, because if the overnight lending rate dropped, so many people would have been going variable. Whereas right now, it's kind of that gamble. Okay, well, are they going to drop at the next meeting in June? And currently, our chief economist is very confident that they will be forced to. They should have done it this time, the Bank of Canada, and they chose not to. So they're really going to have to in June.
I believe you said that your economist was right 19 out of 20 times or whatever. Was she right?
Yes.
Last Wednesday?
No. So we'll make that 19 out of, 21? Yeah, she thought they were going to drop. So then she said, actually, they're going to have to drop in June.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have to come back to this in June and just double check on how good her predictions are, if she can maintain her record.
And when I'm saying she, if you want to look up Dr. Sherry Cooper, she's Dominion Lending's chief economist.
Okay. So Dr. Sherry Cooper. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes. I knew you were going to do that.
I know you saw it. I had to rickroll you. I had to.
But you're not playing it, so I'm not listening.
You don't need to play it to hear it in your head. I wouldn't do this to our listeners. Oh God.
Never gonna let you run around.
I love
self-inflicted wounds. I'm so sorry. Okay, guys. Moving on.
So actually, I have a buyer right now. I have a few buyers right now. They're looking at condos, and specifically, you're buying into the condo unit, but you're also buying into the whole building. And I think one big mistake that buyers make is that they don't actually get an inspection done of the whole building, which is important. So
this conversation just happened recently with some recent buyers.
Okay. So I've had people, I've had clients who have decided to go with their own inspector rather than the ones that I've recommended. And so specifically for a condo, they did get just the unit inspected. The guy didn't put eyes on the roof. He didn't put eyes on the common areas like the boiler or anything like that. I just think it's a wasted opportunity because you have to figure out what the financials are of that property over the next 5 to 10 years that you're going to own it. So we have all these documents available to us. I was talking to Jen just before the show. Jen, what do lenders look at?
It depends on the lender, but quite often lenders will just want to look at review the Form B, which outlines if there's any court proceedings, for example, as well as if there's a depreciation report, they will want to view the depreciation report.
Okay, and because I am looking at this. Hold on a second. I'm just going to add. Can you see my screen now? Oh, hold on. Can you see my screen now?
Well, we can see quite a mess.
Okay, so this is, I don't know how to just get the thing, but this is the Form B. I didn't want to put what the property is, but you can see what the monthly strata fees are, $389, how much they have in the contingency fund here, $46,000, and then bylaws that maybe aren't at land titles, whether or not there was a vote. Are there any winding up resolutions that have passed and not yet being recorded? Any notice that of an upcoming resolution, and if there's strata court proceedings, as well as notices. And then this is important. So does the parking stall, is it allocated or can it be changed around? Is it common property?
Right.
And again,
I call the Form B, like, it's a snapshot in time of the financial situation of that unit in relation to the strata, plus outlining, the ownership or they're not of the parking and the storage units and so forth. So it's a really good, useful core document to review. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, Jane, about building inspections and getting the unit versus the whole building inspected. And the different rationales I find that buyers and building inspectors take on that, because the strata documentation that a buyer reviews includes a depreciation report usually, and the AGMs and past minutes. So you get the history of the building plus this depreciation report, which is kind of like it looks at the age of the building, forecasts over time what upcoming expenses are coming up for replacement based on the age of the windows, the age of the roof, the age of the cladding, and so forth, and tries to predict these things. So a buyer could look at that and say, okay, I know what kind of costs are coming up based on this paper stuff. But what we've seen, Jane and I have definitely seen, is there are some stratas that maybe they have an older depreciation report, maybe they've got their minutes and they've been reviewing things, but they actually aren't aware that, I don't know, their boilers, they'd probably be aware if their boiler was leaking, but maybe they're not aware that there's some damage to their roof that they hadn't noticed that could then cause a leak that could be catastrophic, because they don't have eyes on it. They just have a document that is dated. So that's where a building inspector is actually helpful, because I think the assumption is that the strata should be aware of these things already. If there's a major problem, it's strata responsibility. Anyway, my main concerns are going to be the unit that I'm buying. I think people need to flip their head on that and say the unit you're buying is a small percentage of the overall thing you're buying into.
So one thing that I say to buyers is after you buy the condo, share that building report with the strata so that they're informed of what's going on. That way, if there's anything that needs attention, you have it. Obviously, in a smaller building, you're going to get less turnover. So probably those documents are actually even more important. It also depends on the complexity of the building. So whether or not you have a parkade that's underground or not. Often those experience leaks. Those are little things that can happen over time. Like I'm just trying to think. The Falls has an ongoing leak that you can see the stuff coming through the parkade. It's really gross. There's bird poo burning through the roof. We learn all of this stuff, which you don't expect when you're buying a condo that's important. So this is just, we're looking at a window in time. And the other thing I said to my client is people often don't follow the depreciation report. The same thing, they don't follow the payment structure. What they're doing is they're looking at their house and they're going, okay, you know what? The windows on one side of the building need to be replaced. The windows on the other side are fine. So aesthetically, do they get them all replaced, or do they decide, okay, we're going to maybe do this every side over the next 4 years and share the cost out?
Let's go back to the page, please, with the list of documents. We can reference that while we're talking. But that's one of the subtleties of when you're buying you're buying a condo or a strata unit. You're buying into shared ownership, and so you want to read between the lines. This is the dark art of reading the strata documents. Is who are my neighbors? How are they likely to make decisions in the future? Jane, this is a mess of screen. Are you able to make this cleaner?
Couple comments too from the lending standpoint. So going back to what you said, the Form B is a great snapshot in time. And then one thing that is looked at is that contingency balance. So depending on the age of the building, I mean, just seeing on that one with the 49,000 contingency balance, that's actually would be considered pretty low. So the lender might ask more questions, and then, okay, well, we want to see, is there any special general meetings, and review the AGM meetings as well as the last 12 or 24-month strata documents.
So these are an example of the strata docs that we're going to be looking at for a particular client that I've just had to read over. And I just want to just not show too much there. But my point is that if like your agent is not responsible for interpreting these documents for you, but they can certainly tell you what's normal and what's abnormal. So agreed. The first thing I would do is go to the Form B. I would look at what is in the, what's the balance right now. And then also look at what the life cycle is of the building. So in this particular building, the windows have been done, the balconies have been done, the exterior has been painted. So we're in a low balance period, but we're also we've just come out of a high maintenance period.
Okay. Which
Jane, I'm looking at this list, and there's at least two pieces that I think are really important to review that I don't see in this list. And one is the general index. Three, actually. We've got the general index, which shows it's kind of like a record of all of the changes to the strata plan and bylaws and so forth over time. And those are the two other documents that we really, really want to review. Is the strata plan, which shows the actual strata lot, what parts of the what it truly is part of that strata lot, and what might be what's called limited common property or common property, the various types of allocation. And then the bylaws are so important to review, and especially to note how far off they are from the standard BC bylaws, how many times they get changed. Are people always tweaking these? Do they make sense? Are they smart, or are they over the top, a little too finicky? Because, again, this is the subtle dark art of what am I buying here, and who are my neighbors going to be, and how are they running this shared asset? It's a whole bunch of people steering this ship together.
So the other thing is whether or not it's professionally managed or not. I look at the strata
time.
minutes and see who is recording. So sometimes you'll buy into like a fourplex and it'll be like, well, Susan and Bill met at Joe's place. They brought the appetizer this time. And we're discussing what kind of flowers to have. By the way, did you check out the roof? That sort of stuff. That's very informal to a place like this where they have
And
a
there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, that's not being
For a
run according to the
fourplex.
Strata Property Act, but for a
Right.
fourplex or like a duplex, most duplexes don't sit down and say, you know, have we got a quorum? Shall we start the meeting? Who's taking the meeting minute notes? There's 2 owners, you're not going to do that. And up to 4 or 5 maybe. But once you get in a certain number, it makes sense to get professional property management. It makes sense to follow the Strata Property Act, and even a two unit should be aware of the Strata Property Act and try to follow it, even if it is over a glass of wine with your neighbor.
Well, perhaps that'll make it easier to go down, right? If you have the glass of wine. But the other thing is just understanding that stratas also occur. They're bare land stratas where you share a road or maybe a septic system. And these are important because they follow the same rules and regulations. You do want these sorts of things, especially if you have a common septic. Like who owns all the pipes under the ground and all of that stuff? How is it being maintained? So this is what the depreciation report should be covering. It's very important. As I said, they actually changed the rules, so they're making them less frequent because they were finding them quite onerous and expensive.
I believe you can't opt out in the future. Is that true?
Yeah, I think they've gone to 5 years now. So it used to be every 3 years, and they could opt out, and people were choosing because they were like, you know, nothing's really changed since I got this report. So
well, it's expensive, and especially for again a small. Thinking of a structure that client recently bought. It was an 8-unit townhouse strata, and self-run, and there's no elevators. There's not a lot of systems. It's really helpful to have a depreciation report, but do you need a full-on engineer's depreciation report for something like this? Probably not. You just want to know, hey, am I staying on top of my maintenance and so forth? And going back to that comment about getting a building inspection, that's the perfect kind of place where that building inspection is so helpful to the rest of the strata complex, because there's really nobody with eyes on the prize.
Jen, you were going to say something?
Who holds responsibility.
Yeah. So there, you know, first-time home buyers that are looking to get into the market and buy a condo, couple things is, you know, if you've got less than 20% down, for example, the insurers, CMHC, Sagen, or Canada Guarantee, they do have almost like a blacklist, you could call it, of condo buildings that have issues. Now, sometimes though, those issues have been remediated, and we just have to provide documentation around that. So, you know, just because we hear that no, sometimes it's like, well, hold on, let's just see if there's something in the minutes, or, you know, the work's been completed, but it's, you know, they haven't met yet to finalize, or, you know, anyways, there's definitely options. Yeah, but definitely something to be aware of.
And also,
good point.
Just understand that when you're a certain size, so I think it's 5 units or less, you don't have to, or is it 4 units? I can't remember. You don't have to follow the Strata Property Management Act. So you can run your strata like a house that you share with 4 other people. I have a client who had that.
Really? I think you're talking about the Strata Development Marketing Act. There's
the Strata Development Marketing Act, yes.
So that's for sales, but that's because but not for running your strata. If you're running your strata, you're running legally. Even a duplex is legally expected to run according to Strata Property Act. It's just that a lot of people don't. But if an owner wanted to enforce, so if one owner bought into a strata and they were absolutely very by the book and wanted to do it, and So I've seen examples of this. This is a really important piece, folks, when buying, for example, into a duplex. And Justin Hansen, who's a real estate lawyer who specializes in strata, was recently talking about stratas, duplexes in particular. Let's say your neighbor wanted to update their windows, and they went ahead and updated their windows, and they on the other side and paid for it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided I wanted to update my windows. Windows are an exterior part of the property, which is essentially strata responsibility, and therefore the strata should pay for it. I could go to my neighbor and say, look, you got to help me pay for half of these windows. Good luck getting them to pay for that. But technically, from the letter of the law, that's how strata is supposed to be run. And you'll see that quite often where strata is one side of duplex work is done, the other isn't done. It's not done according to Strata Property Act. But Jane, a strata is a strata is a strata. It's the saying we say over and over again. And even a half duplex, a 3-unit, a 4-unit, a 5-unit, it's still a strata. But for marketing purposes, I think for marketing purposes, that's where you need a developer's disclosure statement if it's 5 or more units.
Right, that's what I mean. And
Yeah.
they often, what I'm trying to say is that what they do is they self-manage, and they often don't follow the rules. They often don't have a contingency fund, or if they do, it's minor. They'll deal with it as things come up. It's much more informal. So, which I don't recommend, actually, because I think it just makes it harder when a decision has to be made, how they come to agreement on that. And I'm just reading up on here. You have to have in a strata of 4 or less, everybody has to be on the strata. The other thing is council. And then the other thing is when you have a strata of 3, that's hard too, because if one person dissents, nothing passes. So because you have to have a 3/4 vote.
Yeah. I remember, I didn't sell the unit, but I remember showing a unit with 3, and it's actually rare to find a 3-unit strata. But if you've got a 2 or 3-unit strata, you need a majority vote. You need 3/4 vote to change any bylaws. So you need unanimous decisions for all parties. And if you have one person who is not on board, you're going to never get anywhere. So if you're going to buy into a strata with bylaws that you like, and is sort of set up the way you like, then 2 or 3 is great. It's not going to change unless everybody agrees to change, and you're one of those people. So you can hold things the way you want. If it's a 4-unit strata or larger, then the majority rules. So you can be outvoted for, let's say, bylaw changes if 3 of the units in a 4-unit strata decide they want to do something different than you think is correct.
Right. And the other thing is just to read the minutes and read in between the lines. So if you're hearing about a noise complaint in condo 302 and you're buying 102 right below it, you might want to just pay attention to the subtle nuances of the strata, that something's happening that's gone awry. Just be aware what you're reading.
I think one thing, and this is, I think, again, a more general advice for folks who are looking at buying strata and wanting to understand the strata documentation. Ask your agent to send you strata documents for a number of different units and buildings. Read the variety of strata documents. They all follow a similar format, but they all have their own flavor, and you're going to start to get the texture of how a strata documentation flows. I know it's dry and boring and maybe not so.
Don't read it before bed.
No, but the point is, if you're buying hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of strata property, it behooves you. It's wise to spend a little time understanding what you're buying. And one thing to do about that is when you start seeing 4, 5, 6 noise complaints in a strata, you don't really know if that's common or not. Because, if I see a couple noise complaints in a strata, that's not going to create a flag for me. But if I see a whole bunch of them, it is. If I see some reference to water, if I see some reference to smoke, smell of smoke, whatever, you just need to or security issues. Like, how often do you see these things, and is this a flag? And that's hard to know unless you've read multiple strata documents as well.
Yeah, it all speaks to process. And so the first thing I look at is the Form B. The second thing I'm looking at are AGMs, is look to see what they're on top of. And then I look at the depreciation report just to see really how old it is, what they're focusing on, looking at the age of the building and figuring out where they are in their life cycle.
Yeah. One other little tip for folks reading through strata documents, read the most, like if you're doing AGMs and meeting minutes, read the most recent ones first and then go backwards in time, because if you start at the back, you're going to see issues come up that you're going to read about, and you're going to continue reading through months of strata documents only to find it was resolved and taken care of. And you didn't really have to pay attention to that. So if you start at the most recent and work backwards, you already know what the current state is, and you can go backwards and get a history in time. But you'll start to see repeating things get rehashed and brought up over and over again. So you can then start to just skip through those because you've already gotten to, you've read the last chapter.
You cheated.
You read the last page and you know the ending.
You know the ending. By the way, the Titanic still sinks at the end.
Yeah, but you kind of want to know that before you get on the boat, right? So it's good to read the last page.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding you. Okay. I always say Strata Property Management Act. I don't know why. That's just stuck in my head. Anyway, okay. Anything else you want to add? Get a pro. Get the right company to do your inspection. Make sure it's comprehensive. Read the documents. Talk them over with your realtor. Just understand. You can get an independent company. You can put them through ChatGPT. All sorts of stuff.
We have there's an AI tool we use called Eli Reports that will output a report that is designed, and it takes into account and knows what is sort of common for strata, so it can give you a little dial to say, like, here's how the contingency reserve fund compares to other stratas of similar age and era. It's, where is it on the dial, and so on and so forth. So it will look for flags like water ingress or smoke or noise and highlight those as well. So it's a pretty useful report, and it doesn't replace actually reading, but it is helpful for giving you some guidance on highlights of things to pay attention to.
I forgot one thing. If you go into a strata and you notice that they have new flooring, make sure there's a letter of indemnity allowing for that flooring to be in there. Because if there isn't, you may be required to take the flooring out.
Yeah, some people do put in hardwood flooring into a place on the fourth floor, and they don't put a great underlay, and then they're walking around, and it just sounds like to the person below like there's somebody walking around on a drum, or click, 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 click. So if that wasn't put in with permission, with strata permission, or there's bylaws that say no hardwood floors and somebody's done that, and that same goes actually for laundry. A lot of other things. If you're making changes to your strata, or if you buying a strata, it looks like it's very apparent that there's been some changes made that weren't part of the original development, kind of want to check into whether or not that was done with permission.
And dishwasher.
You could be required. Dishwashers, washers, dryers, all that stuff. So that's again the subtle arts of this stuff. This is one of the things I do, Jane, I'm sure you do this too, is I always want to revisit and go through the strata documentation with my clients. So we will do a top level overview after they've read it, after we've had a chance to review and talk. We come back, we talk about it, and we go through what I'm seeing from the bylaws, what I'm seeing from the reads of the minutes, or from the strata plan and the general index, and just making sure we've done the due diligence.
And how organized are the strata documents when you receive them? It can be a good indication of.
We organize them for our clients, though, too.
Yeah.
Because they can be a little bit mishmash.
And there's pieces that can be missing, and even property management companies will miss out on documents. So it's interesting because I find some agents, because we have some tools for pulling these documents, and will send me like all of the past bylaws as well. So sometimes I get too many documents because it's confusing. There's sets of old bylaws that have actually been completely repealed and replaced with new bylaws. And so you're kind of, if you're reading this is another reason for reading the most recent first.
Yeah.
So as you read backwards in time, you're going to see, okay, these actually don't even apply because these newer ones repealed and replaced these.
Or you're going into a building where they haven't updated the bylaws to reflect like that there's no age restriction anymore. And you're like, what is going on here? Trying to figure it all out.
They're hoping the province repeals that, and then they can just not, they go back to where they were before.
Yeah, because
it's also costly to go and apply those changes. Yeah. So, okay, guys, that's kind of like an overview of some of the subtleties, but also some of the things you're going to know or be aware of from strata documents. The main thing is get professional help, whether it's your realtor, there are some building inspectors who will do a depreciation report, you might say. And then, of course, there's companies that specialize in strata.
Yeah. Just remember, you're not just buying your unit, you're buying the whole part of the building. So just get informed. Okay. And if you know anybody who is buying a condo or a strata, please share the show with them. I'm sure they'd like to get some information. If you have any questions, please comment. We do check. And then, of course, like and subscribe to us. Alrighty. Andrew, tell us how people reach you.
I'm at 250-360-6106. My email's info@andrewplank.com. You can find me at andrewplank.com as well, or realvibe.ca, realvibe.ca. And look forward to hearing from you.
All righty. Jennifer.
Yes. Jen Loeb at DLC Modern Mortgage Group. Email is jen@jenlow.ca and cell number 250-217-4925. Website jenlow.ca.
All right. And I'm Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. My number is 250-744-0775. You can reach me by email at jane@briarhillgroup.com, or you can go to our website at briarhillgroup.com. And don't forget to follow me and everybody else on Instagram. I'm at realtyteacher_Remax Victoria. Plank Andrew, and is it Jen Lowe?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you guys. We'll see you next Thursday at 9:30. Have a great week. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.